Hi, my name's Steve. This is my new channel, Manticore. I've created it because I've been doing something what I think is interesting, and I thought I'd share it with people and see if other people found it interesting too. So, what I've been doing is I've been sorting out my attic. Now, that probably doesn't seem very interesting to you. It's not a euphemism either. It is really what I've been doing. But I've been a comic collector for something like, well, several decades, since I was 8 years old, I think. That was about when I first got a comic. I don't remember if I bought it myself or someone bought it for me, but I remember it was the X-Men, and it was one of the British versions of the X-Men, so not the ones that you can kind of see now, that you would collect now, but they used to reprint them in Britain in different format and different shape, and I picked up one of them, so I saw the original X-Men team with Cyclops and Jean Grey and the Beast and the Angel and Iceman, and loved those stories. Then kind of got into Spider-Man, and then there used to be this wide comic. I forget what it was called, but it was a weird kind of a flat format, like a landscape format comic, and it had Captain Marvel in it, the original one, not the new lady, but the man, Captain Marvel, and a few others. I think Giant Man was in there, and then Giant Man and the Wasp. I forget exactly who else was in it, but these were the characters I was first introduced to, and so I've loved comics for a long time now. I should probably stress I'm really a DC guy rather than a Marvel guy now. Over the years that changed. I still love Marvel, don't get me wrong, but if I had to express a preference, I've got a lot more DC comics. Anyway, I've been collecting comics ever since then, and back in the 90s I owned a comic shop in a town called Hempstead in England. And the comic shop went okay, but the comic shops are difficult businesses to make work. I had other kind of commitments, so eventually I closed the shop. It didn't go bankrupt or anything. It was doing all right, but it wasn't making a fortune. Bit of a labour of love, and I ran out of time to do the labour, I suppose is the best way to describe it. So I closed the shop, and all of the stock, I thought, well, I'll sell that at some point, and it all went into boxes, and there it stayed. So in the year 2001, I think, I moved to a town called Wisbech in the east of England, and I was still into comics then. I was still buying my own comics every month, and back then I was spending £60 or £70 a month on comics. That's quite a lot of comics for its time. I used to order them from a shop in St Albans called Chaos City Comics, which I think is still going. Shout out to those guys, hope you're doing well. And so I was buying a lot then. So I had the comics I had from when I was a kid that I bought most of my life. I had the comics that I got when I closed the comic shop. I had the comics that I bought for several years when I moved here, and the whole lot accumulated to probably 20,000 comics. And they've all been sitting in my loft for 2 decades. So just recently I thought, you know what I'll do? I'll sell them. I don't really buy comics anymore. Well, that's a lie. I buy comics. I buy indie comics now. Kind of Indiegogo. I support. I like the Comicsgate team, and I support some of their stuff, and other things that catch my eye, things of interest. So I do still buy a few bits and bobs, but not what I used to. Not my regular monthly pull list from a comic shop. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll get all my old comics and I'll sell a lot of them, and make some money. We'll sell a lot of them, except for a few favourites. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever done this, where you start sorting out your comic collection, but I began to get the boxes down from the loft, box after box after box. There were about, 40 or 50 boxes of comics up there, and various other containers, and they're in various conditions. So the ones from when I ran the comic shop are bagged and boarded and stored reasonably securely. The ones since I was a kind of an adult collector are bagged and boarded, or at least bagged and stored securely. Some of the stuff from when I was a bit younger was already not in the perfect condition, because kids, we never were taught how to look after comics. So I hadn't taken a very great deal of care, and some of them have got water damage from being in the loft and from being in various sheds and things that they've been moved between as you rearrange your house 17 times. So I thought, well, I'll sort them out and I'll sell them. So I got Comic Base, there's a whole bunch of different bits of software you can use to catalogue your comics, but I got Comic Base. And I began getting them down and cataloguing the comics, and as I did so, I bought a load of boards and bags, and I began to reboard and rebag those that needed it. So a lot of them don't, but many do. Some of them didn't have anything at all. Some of them have survived well despite that, some of them not so well. Which is a shame, because I've got some real goodies, because Comic Base is an interesting program. It gives you a market value for the near mint version of the comic. And so I've been looking at them and going through the different versions that I've got, and trying to grade them. Now, I'm not great at grading, because when I ran a comic shop I was mostly getting new stock, and so I didn't really need to grade anything. So it's not something I ever really learned. There's lots of guides online that you can go to find out how to grade things, but I'm still not sure it's easy, because I think probably in the same way that everyone overestimates the value of their comics, everyone overestimates the grade of their comics. I suspect I may be wrong. So I was going through and grading them, and then I was double checking and thinking, well, no, really, that's not fine. That's very good, or whatever the the various gradings are. And then I what happens when you start sorting your comics? I don't know if this happens to everyone, but I bet it does. So I kind of fell back in love with them again. So I've been sorting them out, and before I knew it, I decided, well, maybe I won't sell all of my comics. Maybe I'll do is I'll sell some of my comics, and I'll organise a nice comics library in the house, display the rest of them, have a really nice sort of man cave of stuff that's cool. And so I've been doing that. I've been doing it pretty much since December, and here we are, well into January, and I've been putting too much time in it, really. I ought to do a bit more work, but it's fun. I'm really enjoying it, and it's a great way to kind of take your mind off things and just lose yourself in this old collection. And I have forgotten more than I remember I had, because I'm encountering things, and I remember this from when I was a kid, this one was from the comic shop, I don't remember this at all, and I've got things in my collection I've just forgotten. It's been so long, and because some of it was business. And I've picked up things along the way too, so every time I go abroad I check out the comic shops. I'll always buy a few things, like you do. And so I've got all sorts. And what I thought I'd do with this channel is talk about the things I find, because I can't be the only one who has a load of old comics and they want to explore them. And maybe some other people will be thinking about doing this, and this will spur you to do it. And maybe then you'll kind of come in the comments and tell me if you've had the same sort of experiences as I have. Maybe this will cause some, I don't know, some... make you remember the past. I forget the word. Totally wrong. But it will cause you to reminisce. That's it. Reminisce and remember things that you liked. So that's kind of what I'm going to do. Now I've already done about a bit, just under half of my collection. So I've still got a long way to go, but I've missed some of the fun things. So I might have to roll back a little bit, get some stuff, because some of it is now bagged and boarded and filed and laid out. But I'll tell you what my current intentions are. My current intentions are to probably sell about 2/3 of my collection. I want to keep several thousand comics, my favourites, and what I'm then going to do is begin collecting again, trying to fill in the gaps in the things that I decide to keep. So part of my decision is to, what am I going to keep collecting, and why, and then how am I going to find it. And I also thought the channel might be useful, might help me sell some stuff. If I show you and you're a viewer and you say, I'd quite like that, you can let me know. It might help me buy the ones that I'm missing, maybe get a better price for them, who knows. So it'll help me fill my collection out and help me sell it, but also I hope be a fun thing to see. So enough waffle. Let's talk about some of what the box I just brought down has got in it. And some of it I've seen, some of it I haven't seen, but I'm going to kind of show you. So it's a mix and match, right? No, there's no organisation to this. They've been moved around too many times. Sometimes you get a block of one title together. Other times it's just everything's different. But I have found out something pretty cool today. Let's just... see what I got. So, while I was sorting through the collection, so I've encountered these books. This is called The Naz. Now, I've not priced these ones up yet, so I don't know, but I don't think they're worth very much. I don't remember The Naz particularly taking off or being popular, but they are in, well, reasonable condition, but the corners are a bit bashed, the edges a bit, I would kind of say they're probably fine. I don't think that, because they say that very good is the kind of normal state for a comic that you've kept and taken some care of, but not very great care, and you've read it a bunch of times. And these are, I think, slightly better than that. They're quite flat. The colours are still very sharp. It's got lots of gloss on it. There's hardly any wear on the spines, but they are a little bit bashed on the corners. Not when I say bashed, off close. I'll show you. So there you go. You can see some. Now, well, I mean, perhaps you guys will tell me. You know better than me, I'm sure, whether this is very good or fine. I don't think it's bad enough to be good, because that has to have some errors and problems, I think, like kind of date stamps or creases in the cover or little tears and things like that. This has got none of these. These are in quite good nick, but I have no idea what they're about. It's a suggested for mature readers DC book, but not Vertigo, so don't know what it's about. Have a look at those anyway. But I thought they were interesting. Now, they're not, literally straight after them I came across these very special babies. This is Harley Quinn #1 and Harley Quinn #2. Now, these aren't, they're very nicely boarded. They're in near mint condition. There's not a mark on them. The corners are great, the edges are great. They're very flat, great colours, really, really good condition. They were in, luckily, they were in, well carefully stored in the loft as they were, which is great because when I stored them, they were just a normal comic. But they're not just a normal comic now because this is the first and second issue of the 1999 comic, which was Harley Quinn's first ever solo comic. Not her first appearance, that's a different thing, but her first ever solo comic. And what has happened since all these movies have started doing well is the first appearances of characters that are now very popular have increased in value. And as far as I can tell, according to the comic program, whatever it's called, hang on, I'll tell you. Yeah, according to Comic Base, don't know why I forgot the name there. According to Comic Base, this one at near mint is worth £67, and this one is worth 20 something pounds, #2. So about £100 the pair. Looking on eBay, they never sell. They never seem to me to sell for quite as much. The classic ones never seem to sell for quite as much as the Comic Base tells you. When you actually see people legitimately selling them, the prices are lower than you think. Meanwhile, ones that Comic Base says are worth £1 or something, they always seem to sell for a bit more. And I would guess that is the realities of posting comics that you've sold on eBay. Nothing sells. No point selling something for 65p. I mean, even if Comic Base says, in very good condition, this is worth 25p or something, you go online, you see a very good one selling for £1 or something on eBay. And I think that's because who would bother with eBay and all the messing around with the sales on eBay if you weren't going to get something for it, and that artificially pushed the price up a little bit for the cheaper ones. Anyway, so those are worth £100 the pair. According to Comic Base, I would guess probably half that in reality if you wanted to shift it. Readers may know differently, but I was quite pleased to find those because they were just stuck in amongst dozens of other stuff that isn't worth anything. There's a whole bunch of these. Incredible Hulk. You'll notice it's got a price on it, £1.50. So that's the price it was. Now, the ones with the price on like this are the ones from when I had the comic shop. Obviously, that's the comic shop price that was put on. It sold for £1.50 at the time. And there's another one that sold for £1 at the time. And they're number 404 and 411 of the Incredible Hulk's big first ever run that did finally end for a shorter run afterwards. And that's interesting. Oh, there's another one here, a little bit stuck together, but there's no damage because it's the bags, and I will rebag these. But there's 403. So the one before 404, obviously, also for £1. I haven't priced these yet, but there doesn't appear to be anything special about them. So I would guess in that condition, which is probably very fine. If I've got the gist of this, they're basically mint, they're flat, there's no marks. They're as they were when they were new, but they've just got that little bit of wear that an older comic gets, even if it's been bagged. So very fine, I would imagine. A couple of pound each, probably £1.50, something like that. So what else have we got? Right, so I'm actually, this is the first thing I'm going through the book, and I'm already starting to find more of these Harley Quinns. So I obviously had a set. So I've got number 3, number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, this is really looking good. Better selection than I thought. Then it jumps straight from 10 to number 16. And then 18, 20, 21, 22. I've got a lot of these, and I don't particularly remember collecting them myself, but they're not price tagged, so I'm guessing I must have done at some point. 24, 25, 27, 28, 34. I mean, it's not a full run, but there's a lot of the comics here. 35, 36. And it ends, I stopped having it at 36. That's my last one. Maybe that was the last one. I won't know till I check Comic Base. But that's a pretty decent selection of bagged and boarded, very fine to near mint Harley Quinns. Now, only the first couple are worth, a bit more money, and then they drop quite quickly. But that's still not a bad selection. I mean, even at £3 or £4 each or something in the condition that they're in, that's a couple of £100 worth of comics with a number 1 and number 2. Will I sell them? I probably will. Harley Quinn, I can take or leave. I used to like Harley Quinn when she first appeared, but this kind of bubblegum chewing kind of tank girl wannabe, in my opinion, is less interesting for me. But I know I'm in the minority there because loads of people like Harley Quinn, don't they? So she's doing very well. That seems to me like one well worth selling. I probably won't get anything like that price when I actually come to sell it. But I don't know whether to sell them as a job lot or individually. A lot of people seem to be doing them individually in the various places. So with Comic Base, you also get part of their, it's called Electric Marketplace or something, I forget, but they're connected to an online site where you can buy and sell. And I've listed all the ones I had for sale, and so far I haven't had a single inquiry. So I'm guessing that isn't a brilliant place to buy and sell, or I'm doing something wrong maybe. Whereas on eBay, I've had quite a bit of luck with my kind of early attempts, and so that's good. eBay seems to be the place to go, but it's just a problem, isn't it? Because eBay is so fiddly to try and list things, and it's such a lot of, it seems to me like a lot of effort, but I bet I'll learn more about that as I go too. So what else have I got in this box? I've got, this is, not all the boxes are like this, some of them are absolutely battered, and there was one where the bottom 6 comics were water damaged and had to be thrown away, and it was gutted because some of them were quite interesting looking comics, no real valuables though. Not that I've got many real valuables, because my collecting period is, well, kind of when I had some money, 80s, 90s, early noughties. The stuff from the 60s and 70s I've got was when I was a kid. Now that's worth money, but because I was a kid when I owned it, it's taken a bit of a battering. At best, they're in very good condition, and that knocks the price down. You've got a comic that Comic Base says is worth £35, and then you drop the kind of condition down to very good or even good sometimes, and the price drops down to £2.50 or something. So they're not so much fun, and I probably won't sell them because they got too much nostalgia. That's the word I was trying to think of earlier. They got too much nostalgia for me to want to sell them for that lower price, even though I'm sure it's a fair price given their condition. So probably I won't sell those, but I can tell you I have encountered some goodies. First appearance of Deadpool's a good one I found last week. That's worth a few bucks. And I've got some other kind of interesting stuff that we'll see as we go. And I'll let you know how the sort of sales and buying. So far, I've spent more money buying new comics than I have selling old comics because, like I said, I fell back in love with it, and it's causing me to spend a bit more money on stuff. So, what have we got? So, I've got a very nice condition Doom Patrol here. Now, that's not the first series of Doom Patrol. There was a series, or maybe even 2 series earlier than this one. I forget if this was the second or the third, probably the second. But because Doom Patrol started a long time ago, and then they kind of remake them periodically. They relaunch the titles and they start with number 1 again. But this is from 1987. It's a mint condition Doom Patrol number 1. Not going to be worth a lot of money, even though Doom Patrol have got a TV series now. Spin-off from the Titans on Netflix, I think. Is it Netflix? Forget. Haven't seen it myself. I like the Titans first season. Haven't got round to seeing any more since then, but I did like it. Didn't love it, but I liked it. Thought the Doom Patrol episodes were the best episodes actually, so I'm hoping that'll be good, but I've not managed to catch the spin-off yet. I've got here another number 1 here. This is Phantom Stranger. And Phantom Stranger is one of the DC supernatural heroes. How powerful he is depends on kind of who's writing him, I think, and he's gone up and down in the levels. But his powers aren't really clearly defined anyway, kind of magical. But I've got 2 number 1s, 2 copies of the number 1, and then, because this is obviously when I had the comic shop, and then a number 3 and a number 4, and it's a mini-series. So unfortunately I don't have the number 2, unless it turns up in one of the other boxes. That means I can't sell it as the full 4-issue mini-series, which would have been a nice way to sell it. I like Phantom Stranger, so whether or not I sell it, I don't know. I can't. The trouble is, I'm finding that there are so many. I think, well, I like that one. I'll keep that. I'm going to end up keeping too many. I've got to get rid of 2/3 of this collection because it's too much to store. It's going to fill up. I've got a reasonably big house, but this is going to eat up the whole storage space I've got, and then some. I've already filled it, and I'm not halfway through yet. And I want to have some space for displays and figures and kind of fun things. And I'll show you that when it's done as well. But it looks like a bomb site at the moment. So so there you go. But I don't know. They probably won't be worth very much. Phantom Stranger's never really taken off as a massive character. But a couple of quid probably each. I don't know. So now I've got what is this? This is the 80-page giant Green Lantern. Absolutely mint condition. I mean, I can't see how you could physically get a better condition than this. It's absolutely brand new looking. There's not a mark, a scratch, or a bend on it. And Green Lantern is not an enormously collectible character as far as I can see. It's been going a very, very long time, and is very popular, and has some great people work on him. But for some reason, I suppose because the movies have never really done very well, the character itself has never gone boom in regards to the value of the comics, except when you get to the old ones where everything is worth money. But I don't know, that's interesting. So it's not going to be worth very much. Secret Files and Origins, that's the Nightwing version. So there's a whole series of these with different characters, kind of little things, little secrets they reveal about them, and fun stuff really for the dedicated fan. But it's in mint condition, so hopefully it'll be of interest to someone. So most of these comics are going to sell for a couple of quid each. I mean, that's the fact. And the ones that are worth less than that, I'm going to put into a giant bargain box and take it to car boots with some other stuff I've got to sell, and let people sort through, and it'll be £1 a comic, or kind of 7 for a £5 or something like that. That's not going in there. These other ones, my plan is to individually list them over the next 3, 4, 5 years, gradually try and sell them off. And if I try a couple of times to sell something and it never goes into the pound box, it goes for the next car boot. That's my thinking at the moment. Got a Teen Titans annual. Great condition. As I said, this box is mostly great condition because they were bagged and boarded and stored in a dry space in a plastic container. And, you know, comics can stay good like that for a very long time. The Adventures of Superman, where he's having his race with the Flash. That's not the... he's had this race with the Flash a couple of times. They did this years ago as well. This one is 1990. 1990 is well known to be the least valuable. The 90s are the least valuable period for comics. You go earlier than that and there are some real collectibles, but in the 90s comics went boom. Comics were really popular, and because of that there were so many printed that although people may still want those comics, it's not they're not sought after, but there's lots of copies of them. And also people knew about keeping them in good condition then too, so people were kind of trained to have them in good condition, and so the value isn't as much on them, but there are still some interesting ones. I always enjoy this the race between the Superman and the Flash, because perhaps people don't know if you're not a comic book nerd like me, but Superman has super speed like the Flash does, and in fact they both run really fast, but the Flash is the fastest man alive, obviously, so he should always win in my opinion. Okay, what else have we got? Okay, so I've got an 80-page giant Robin. Great condition. Green Lantern Planet DC. Another 80-page giant. I've got all these seem to be together. I've got the Flash 80-page giant. This is the Wally West Flash, I think. So the second Flash of the Flashes I recognise anyway. There's the old guy with the helmet from Justice Society, but I'm talking about Barry Allen as the first Flash, who they bring back the name for the TV series, but he was then replaced. He died in a crisis, and he was replaced by Wally West. And then there's been several other Flashes since then, and also the original Barry Allen has come back to life, as characters are wont to do in comics. Very rare for anyone to stay dead forever, and in fact, I always wonder if somebody really does stay dead forever, what have you got against them, comic books? Because you bring everyone back, so why do some of them never come back? Now, I digress. I've got Batman Annual. I've got a giant collection of Batman. Now, I love Batman. He's my favourite. He's one of my favourite characters ever. I know I share that with a huge portion of the world, of course. But all I can say is I like Batman before you guys. And there were people going to say on the screen, no, you didn't. I've liked Batman since for you longer than you. And actually, that's probably true. But there are lots of modern people who've discovered Batman, and fair play to you, because Batman's a brilliant character. And kind of reading back and seeing how great he was. Well, I liked Batman when I was 8. He was, after those early comics, it was probably the first DC character I encountered, and then Justice League, so a bunch more. And I really always thought Batman was a great character, always enjoyed reading it, and have always collected the various Batman's detective comics, by the Brave and the Bold appearances. There was a book where he used to team up with Superman when I was a kid. Was it called World's Finest? Was that the one, the team up book? I forget. Anyway, I've got lots and lots and lots of Batman and Superman, as you'll see as we go. What else have we got here? Right, so I've got something in slightly less good condition, because these are things that I had from when I was younger, and these are my part of my own old collection. So they're bagged and boarded now, but the condition is worse. So there's the Defenders. So when's that? 12p a comic. So that's got to be early 80s, late 70s. I would have thought early 80s. Oh, 1979. There you go. So I was what was I then? 11 years old in 1979, and that was I was buying comics then with my pocket money. I would get whatever it was, a quid or something, or a couple of quid, and walk up to what was called the Queen Square in Hempstead, and there were two newsagents there, and they both sold comics, but they never had the same ones. So you could go to one, and they'd have a selection of kind of American superhero comics, and I would then go to the other one, and they would have a slightly different selection. I don't know why. I'm guessing the news vendors, the distributors, must have just sent them a pack, and they all got different packs. So then I had the terrible choice of what I would spend my £1 or £2 or whatever it was on, because I never had enough money to buy them all, which is what I would have done if I had unlimited pockets. So I would go from one to the other, one to the other. Sometimes I would walk backwards and forwards between them like 5 times, browsing them, and all the shopkeepers got to know me, and they would kind of look at me like this, but they knew that I would eventually spend some money, and I'd spend all my pocket money. I would basically get the comics I liked out of each shop, and then a little mixed bag of sweets, kind of 10p's worth of sweets, and a drink, and then walk back home again. And I was excited all the way home, because when I got home, I'd spread them out on my bedroom floor, and I'd read them all, probably 3 or 4 times, and although I don't do that now, that's not, those days are gone, that sort of excitement is gone. The excitement is back, in that, I don't know why I love these things, and I don't know why so many of us love these things, but there is a reason. Here you go, look at this one. The Inhumans. That's issue number 3 of the Inhumans. Now that's absolutely battered. Look at the state of that. I mean, the Mylar makes it look better, but it isn't. It's pretty battered. That's a very good, at best, probably good, if I'm honest, because it's come away from the staples and there's a bit missing on the spine. So I don't know. I'm still learning these gradings. You guys are going to be chatting to me, I'm sure. But so this has got a guy in it called Shatterstar, and I'll tell you a funny story about Shatterstar sometime. But it's a character I really like ever since this comic showed me to him when I was 11 years old. So there's that. Didn't really love the Inhumans. They're okay. They're quite funny, interesting bunch of kind of superpowered characters who lived on the moon. They made a TV show about it. It wasn't very good. Most of the more recent Inhumans books they've done I've not really liked. But this early stuff was interesting because every Inhuman had a superpower. So it was a whole city, if you like, because I think it was like a city on the moon. A whole group of people, the whole race, all had superpowers. And they did that before that was a thing kind of with mutants, so it was interesting. So this is a nice one. This is now this is going to look worse than it is because it's in a bit of a battered Mylar. There you go, but don't worry about that because inside that Mylar it's still in great condition. That's near mint condition, in fact. And that is Batman Blackgate, number 1, 97. That was a time of brilliant Batman comics, absolutely fantastic comics in the 90s. Just blew me away. Trying to find some other interesting things. This is a 80-page giant JLA. Century War. I don't remember anything about that. Can't remember what it is. So I've read more than I've lost. Let's see what else I've got. I'm probably going on a bit for my podcast. First one now, so I will draw it to a close soon. But I've got these Batman Journey into Night. Now that's I don't know if it's a mini-series or because it doesn't say it's a mini-series, but I don't remember it, and I seem to have all of them because this number 6 was the one I was missing. The last books had the rest of them in it. I say I had all of them. I had all of them up to number 8 or something. So if they went on further than that, I don't have all of them. But I've got a feeling it might have been a mini-series. We'll see. More Hulk, lots and lots of Incredible Hulk. I like the Incredible Hulk as a character that turns up and is in things, and I like the idea of him. But I've never really been a fan of the comics. I've never really collected Hulk. I don't know why I have so many. I'm guessing it was always at them 2 supermarkets. Newsagents, supermarkets. I guess it was always at those 2 newsagents, and so I probably just had to pick it up because, it was better than I would never buy Thor. Hate Thor. I know loads of people love Thor, screaming at me now, but I just don't like Thor. Don't like all that thee and now stuff that they used to write into all his stuff. I've got some This is a bit more recent now. So I've got some Amazing Spider-Man here. And the reason this is a bit more recent is because it's actually number 57, but there's a greyed out number here, 498. And I think, and I'm only just learning this because I'm new back into it, and this didn't exist when I collected last time. But I think that's what's called a legacy number. So, this used to annoy me. It used to annoy me when comics would start again. So they'd start again with a new number one, some big launch, because they get more readers in and get more people interested. But they would never tell you. So you had like 1 to 35 of the previous run, and then 1 to 180 of the run after that, and then this one starts at 1 again. And I wanted to know, you start to forget what order they come in. You've got to look up the dates and the prices to try and work out the order to get your collection straight. The legacy number, it tells you there was an Amazing Spider-Man before this, and if you were to run the number straight through, then 498 is the number this would be, which is useful for a collector who wants to keep their stuff in numerical order. And I'm sure that is what it means, because I've got 56 here, 497, and 55, 496. Now all these Amazing Spider-Mans, they're all in great condition, so I'm guessing these come from the comic shop period. What else have we got? Action Comics Weekly. Now that happened in the 90s. For a while they decided, in their wisdom, this one's got a price sticker on it. Look at this, Concord 60p. Now that's really annoying. So that wasn't from when I had a comic shop earlier than that. That's really annoying because the newsagents used to stick on price stickers, and of course now you can't get the things off, and if you do get them off, they leave a mark, and that cuts the value of your comic. And that's this. Although it's not in a Mylar or backed, it's in pretty good condition, and that knocks it straight down. So that's really annoying. Concord. But Action Comics Weekly, they decided they would try and do. This Action Comics very long running Superman comic. Well, it wasn't always Superman, but it's well known to be Superman. They decided they wanted to do a weekly comic, see if they could sell it. It was 48 pages, so a bit thicker than Superman comics normally were. And they would have not just Superman, but a few other backup stories in it too. And every week one came out. And I don't think it really worked, because it was okay, but there was definitely a fall down in the writing quality and the art quality. Because, I never really wasn't one who really noticed art quality. I was in it for the stories, so it wasn't until later, until I got older, I've started noticing the art. It didn't worry me if they were brilliant artists or basic artists, but I noticed in these Action Comics, these weekly ones, they just couldn't seem to push out the quality to the same standard, and eventually it failed and they went back to monthly again. But I've got loads of these Action Comic weeklies. So this is a nice one. This is from 87. This is a Superman and the Metal Men. That's another Action Comics, Superman. But the reason I say it's good is because I really like the Metal Men. So I don't have a lot of Metal Men comics, but the few I've got I'm going to be keeping, and that'd probably be one of the old ones I try and fill out my collection with, because I've always liked them as characters. They're androids who are made by a guy called Dr. Magnus, I think was his name. I could be wrong about that. I'm going by memory from decades ago. And he made these robots. Each of them's made out of a different metal, and their superpowers relate to the metal, sort of. And it was really nicely done. The storylines were very nice. It was very thoughtfully done, with them kind of struggling with wanting to be human and not being human. And before this was a thing that everybody did, they were doing it, and I liked it anyway. So now we're getting to some older stuff. Now this is knackered. Now look at this. It's stuck in, as I said, they're not put in here in any order. But there is an Action Comics number 445. Now these older Action Comics tend to be worth a little bit. I mean, we're not talking about a fortune, and I haven't looked at what this is worth, but I'd take a flyer and say in mint condition it's probably worth 20 quid or 25 quid or something. It's not in mint condition. It's not even in very good condition. It's in good, maybe fair, which fair is the lowest you can go, apparently, so I've been reading up. Fair is the lowest condition you can go and still have the intact comic book. So fair, the cover can be off the staples and ripped in half, and there can be price stickers all over it, and all the pages can be brittle, but as long as it's all there, it's fair. Well, this isn't that bad, so I don't think it's fair. But it doesn't look like a book that's just had regular use. It's worse than that. This looks like a book that an 8 or 9 or 10-year-old kind of bashed around and had a lot of fun with, which is sure is what I did, and what you should do with comics, particularly if you're a kid. But nevertheless, I won't be selling this for £1 or £1.50 or whatever it's now worth because of its state, because it's too cool. It's too. Remember, it reminds me, it's one of my originals, that one, I'm sure it is. I'll have to look at the dates and check, but it looks like it is. Oh, here's another one of those. So, here's Action Comics 436. And that is definitely one of the early ones. You can see the price is 20 cents, so that's another kind of 12. Oh, in fact, unfortunately, they've stamped, see this, look what they've done. They've stamped a price on it. The bastards. Not content with putting a sticker on that may be removable, they've stamped it on in ink. Thanks, guys, thanks for that. But given the condition, it's at best very good. In fact, looking at the corner there, look, it's not great. I don't know, it's probably good or very good, probably good. So again, that would knock what was probably a 20 quid or 30 quid value down to, according to Comic Base, which again overestimates, I think, the value of some of these. But probably knocks it down to a quid or a couple of quid because it's in a poor state. But I wouldn't sell it. That's not one of the ones I'd sell. It reminds me too much of the past. Right. So. Now here's a problem. So these are all in good condition, except for they're down the bottom of all of these were in this plastic crate with a lid, and they were all bagged and boarded. But these ones were not boarded, just bagged, and they were down the bottom, and they've clearly moved at some point. So the whole pile has sat and squished them up against the side, and now you've got this bend. You see? Now the condition is fine, other than this bend, and I'm told you can press them somehow to make them flat again. I have to look into that. I don't think these are particularly worth it, to be honest with you, because they're Action Comics Weekly and a really battered copy of Incredible Hulk. There's no value here, except to the collector who happens to be missing that one, and there'll be loads of them around. There's a wedding one here. Sometimes they're interesting. I don't know. Anyway, so what I'll probably do is kind of gently fold them straight, properly board and bag them, put them under some comics so they get pressed down for a while, and then put them in the pound box, unless I look them up and see their worth. So that's one box. That was a box this size. I've got 30, 40 of those, something like that, to give you an idea, plus some other containers full of them. So loads and loads and loads of comics. It's going to take me some time. I hope you found this interesting. I hope you've seen some cool stuff in there. Remind you of what's going on. I may not always talk about comics because it's a fun place to kind of vent to people with, I don't know, a like mind. I don't even know if anyone's ever going to be interested. But if you are interested, please subscribe. Leave me a comment and tell me what you like and what else I should do. Thanks. Gonna now play my music again.